Let's dive right into this explainer with a pretty mind-bending question for all of us in the field. What if the intellectual tower of modern science, the one we've literally dedicated our lives to, is fracturing simply because the cognitive hardware we use to build it is fundamentally corrupted? For centuries, our shared objective has been to decode reality so we can predict and influence the physical world. But today, we're going to examine a profound possibility. What if reality isn't composed of clean subject-action-object dualities at all? And yet, our entire discipline of physics is still built right on top of a flawed, prehistoric model of reality.
So think about it, we really need to ask if the paradoxes we keep slamming into in fields like quantum mechanics are actually structural breaking points. Are they the limits of a cognitive operating system that was explicitly designed to fragment the world? We have to wonder whether the deep, unresolved mysteries of the universe are just out of our current mathematical reach, or if the very tools of our human cognition are artificially creating those mysteries in the first place.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll hit the crisis in physics, our prehistoric operating system, the Lego brick fallacy, testing boundaries, and finally, a seamless universe.
All right, starting off with Section 1, the crisis in modern physics and how our intellectual tower is fracturing.
As physicists, we've operated the same way for centuries, right? We build new models on top of old ones, test them relentlessly, trash the weak ones, and keep whatever gives us the best predictive power. But instead of everything wrapping up neatly into a grand unified theory, our finest models invariably fracture under pressure. We just end up generating deeper paradoxes, which forces us to invent increasingly abstract concepts just to keep our current theories from completely falling apart. It often feels less like a steady march toward clarity and way more like a descent into overwhelming complexity.
And this points to a seriously unsettling possibility. The truth isn't just hard to find, but our foundational software for understanding it might actually be broken. We're frantically trying to calculate a universe that absolutely refuses to be broken apart. What is the foundational software of human cognition? The absolute bedrock our science is built on is fundamentally corrupted.
Moving right along to Section 2, our prehistoric operating system, basically a savannah survival hack.
Here's the wild part. These original models of reality, they weren't actually designed by physicists. They were forged by natural selection. To keep prehistoric primates alive on the savannah, evolution built a brain that had to slice a seamless, unified universe into neat utilitarian boxes. This biological imperative is called edge detection. Because look, if there's a tiger in the grass, you can't afford to sit there and perceive the seamless interconnectedness of the cosmos. You need to instantly draw a hard, absolute boundary around that threat, or you're lunch.
Look at the stark contrast here. This biological disease of reification freezes reality into manageable chunks, totally ignoring the actual interdependent flux of the cosmos. Now, this mental segmentation was an incredible survival hack for dodging predators, but it was just that, a hack. It is not objective truth. We evolved to view reality through rigid dualities like self and other, hallucinating these concrete boundaries where, in reality, there is only process.
You can literally trace this error chronologically. A survival hack evolved millions of years ago, which then hardened into the rigid classical physics of the 17th century, where we modeled the universe as solid nouns and absolute objects. And now, it's completely breaking down in modern quantum mechanics, where relational fields absolutely shatter those rigid boundaries.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Lego brick fallacy and deconstructing the triad.
This biological edge detection forces us to forcefully organize our experiences into structural triads. It's what we can call the Lego brick fallacy. We operate under this massive delusion that an actor, the mechanism of action, and the result are solid, independent pieces that just snap together. We learn to see the cosmos as this collection of discrete parts, like a red brick, a blue brick, and a yellow brick, assuming each one possesses its own independent essence before they ever even touch.
We continuously chop the unified process of existence into these rigid triads. We look at subject, relation, and object, cause, causality, and effect, perceiver, perception, and perceived. By doing this, we're basically hallucinating an invisible mannequin of absolute core entities that are just temporarily dressed up in properties. We treat these as objective physical realities, rather than the convenient linguistic fictions they actually are.
We've learned to see the cosmos as a linear chain of production. But these neat divisions, they are linguistic projections. It's like we're trying to map a seamless, flowing river by cutting it into frozen blocks of ice.
The boundaries we draw between a cause and its effect are entirely artificial.
Section 4. Testing reality's boundaries. Let's take a look at Nagarjuna's stress test.
Centuries ago, the philosopher Nagarjuna basically ran a rigorous stress test on this fragmented worldview and found a fatal flaw. If you submit our foundational scientific models to his ruthless analytical machinery, known as the tetralemma, the structural failure becomes glaringly obvious. He asked 4 simple questions of these rigid triads. Are they absolutely independent? Are they entirely identical? Are they both, or are they neither?
Think about it. If cause and effect were truly separate, sitting in airtight boxes, they could never interact. The gears of the universe would just freeze. But conversely, if they were absolutely identical, the dynamic action of the verb would collapse entirely into absurdity. Nothing could ever happen.
This brilliantly illustrates the concept of mutual co-arising. Take a parent and child. You cannot isolate the essence of a parent in a vacuum. A parent is instantaneously co-created the exact millisecond the child is born. Things do not exist in isolation with their own independent inherent essence. They exist only in a state of total shifting interdependence. Finally, Section 5. A seamless relational universe, or the functional mirage. So, what happens when we finally accept a seamless relational universe? We realize that if reality is fundamentally undivided, then literally every scientific model we have constructed since prehistory is flawed at the source. The escalating paradoxes we observe, especially in quantum mechanics, where the neat lines between the observer and the observed completely break down, are the direct result of a cognitive operating system built to fragment a seamless web. It's not that the truth is just hard to find, it's that we are hitting the structural breaking points of an intellectual tower built on a broken foundation. Now, does this mean all our work is useless? Should we just pack up the lab? Absolutely not. This doesn't mean our models lack conventional functionality. If you walk face first into a brick wall, classical physics functions flawlessly, and for sure your nose will break. The physical interaction is undeniably real, but the absolute independent object, the inherent wallness driving the math beneath it, is an imputed cognitive illusion.
Our modeled reality functions exactly like an echo in a canyon. An echo has real, measurable efficacy, right? It vibrates eardrums, it can startle a bird into flight. But if you reach out to grab its absolute core, you catch nothing but empty air. It's exactly like chasing a desert oasis. It causes real physiological exhaustion, but the absolute object you are chasing is an illusion. This is what we call functional emptiness.
So here is your takeaway for your daily work. It requires a radical reframing. We must embrace our scientific models as highly effective provisional maps of a relational nexus rather than absolute objective truths. We need to engage fiercely with the conventional simulation, using the mathematical maps and categories required to operate without ever reifying them into frozen, isolated blocks of absolute reality. The map is incredibly useful, but it is not the territory. I want to leave you with a provocation to challenge how you view our entire discipline. The next time you encounter an unyielding paradox in your data or hit a wall at the chalkboard, ask yourself, are your scientific models mapping objective truth, or are they just the echoes of a prehistoric primate's survival hack? Thanks for diving into this explainer with me. Keep questioning the foundation, and I'll catch you in the next one.